allegiance.
Motorcycle.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heather, will you please take roll?
Councilmember Bachman.
Here.
Councilmember Beaton.
Here.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Here.
Mayor Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Pratt.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Here.
Nope, never mind. City Manager.
Here.
City Attorney.
Here.
DPW Director.
Here.
Finance Director.
Here.
Police Chief.
Here.
Fire Chief.
Here.
City Engineer.
Here.
Roll call complete.
Thank you. Public hearings, we have none. Citizens' comments on agenda-related items. Have any citizen comments? Consent agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are on the consent agenda and considered by the city manager to be routine matters. Prior to approval of consent agenda, any member of council may have an item from the consent agenda removed and taken up during the regular portion of the meeting. Consent agenda items include approval of minutes, payroll, invoices, quarterly finance update, quarterly investment report, notifications regarding next study session. At this time, council could take action to approve the consent agenda as presented. I have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Any discussion? Heather, could you please take roll?
Councilmember Bachman.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Finished business, we have none. New business, introduction of new employee Rachel Bendelay.
Good evening, Council. I'm pleased to introduce the city's latest employee. She's the Deputy Treasurer and Accountant down in the Administrative Services Department. Her name's Rachel Bendelay, and she hails from Custer, Michigan. So I'd like to have you welcome her, and she can say a few words to introduce herself to you.
Thank you for having me. I've moved to this area about 15 years ago, and we've been enjoying the west side of Michigan. We come from central Michigan area. My husband and I have 3 children, and my background is accounting. I've done accounting and management, and so I'm happy to be here.
Oh, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consideration of creating a special committee and appointing a city council member to participate. Section 13-16 of the city charter allows for the creation of special committees to make recommendations to city council. The EDA grant requires the city to solicit competitive bid proposals for the project's architect, engineer, contractor. The city manager is requesting council create an EDA grant Riverwalk architect, engineer selection committee and provide a representative to participate on the committee. Jeez. In addition to the member of council, the proposed committee may include representatives from West Shore Community College, Manistee Downtown Development Authority, as well as city manager and Department of Public Works director. The committee shall evaluate the bids submitted and make a recommendation to council as to which bid to accept. At this time, council could take action to establish an ad hoc EDA Grant Riverwalk Architect Engineer Selection Committee, designate a member of council to serve on the committee, and authorize the city manager to fill the remainder of the committee. Do I have a motion?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yes. I was in an ad hoc committee meeting that lasted almost 9 months. It was on streets. Is there a beginning and proposed end date for this?
Yes, I'm planning to move fairly quickly. I'll have an RFP document that the committee will review. It'll go out to bid. We'll get the bids back and review them and then do a recommendation. So I'm hoping to have this all completed within 2 months.
And how often do you think the committee will meet?
I think it's going to meet at least 3 times, and we can do a Zoom, things like that.
So with that committee, I have a question. Are we going to seek somebody from the public or from the Parks Department if it's connected with the Riverwalk. That's already kind of connected with the parks. So I'm just wondering if we could have a representative from the Parks Committee or invite them at least.
So I talked to the Manistee, the DDA, and I did talk to Kelly Grebe, who's also on the Parks Commission. She volunteered to be on it. We could have another member as well, if there's interest.
Does this motion require the mayor to appoint someone to this and name a council member for it to fulfill it, or will you leave that open? How will you do that?
That's what we were just discussing, actually. I had contemplated that the motion was going to include who the council was designating to be the council member to serve on the committee. We can just do a separate motion on that if you wanted to just have that part of your discussion, have the motion currently on the floor voted upon, and then a separate motion to designate who's going to,
Okay, so we need to take roll call for this motion.
for that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
We continue discussion before that? Okay, I would love a little bit deeper understanding of what exactly this entails.
Absolutely. So when we received the it's a federal grant from the Department of Commerce. We have $240,000 the DDA committed for the project, which was the match. $850,000 is what we're receiving for the grant. And part of the requirements, we couldn't utilize Spicer, the city engineer. So they have a requirement that we solicit proposals from architect engineering firms. I thought was because that $240,000 was going to be for the art park behind West Shore Community College. It would be important to include a representative from the DDA, West Shore Community College, and then have some buy-in from council. And I can also include a member of the Parks Commission as well. But it's really, this is the first step. That firm is then going to create bid specifications for the improvement, and it's going to be, within the DDA district. And then once those are complete, that's going to be bid out as well. So we'll probably have a selection committee for that at that time. So we have 31 months to complete the whole project, starting from when we accepted the grant back in October. So it's time to get moving on this, so thank you.
Anybody else? Heather, can you take roll, please?
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes,
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Motion approved.
So,
I think probably just some limited discussion on who may be interested in serving on that committee, and then a motion to approve placing them on the committee.
okay.
I'd like to be on the committee.
Anybody else?
I wouldn't mind doing it either.
Now you need a motion?
Yeah, and you could, and the motion could be to appoint one of the council members or both of them if you wanted to the committee. I think either way would be
I have to
acceptable.
do that, or anybody?
When somebody makes a council member needs to make a motion.
I'll make a
support it.
motion and we appoint Councilmember Beaton and Councilmember Lundberg to this committee.
I'll second it.
Can you take roll, Heather?
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes,
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of applications to boards and commissions. The city clerk has taken action to advertise vacancies on the Airport Authority, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, Compensation Commission, Harbor Commission, Peg Commission, and Tree Commission. Mayoral and manager appointments require a motion, second, and council voted support. Nominations for this council appointments do not require a second. After all the nominations are made, council votes on the nominees until one nominee receives majority support. The following applications have been received. Airport Authority, one vacancy, term ending 11/30/25. It is the city's nomination to the County Airport Authority. I would like to nominate or appoint George A. Becker, 565 Bryant Avenue.
I'd like to make a motion supporting the mayor's recommendation for George A. Becker, 565 Bryant Avenue, to a term ending 11/30/25 to the Airport Authority.
I'll second.
Heather, can you take roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt. Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, 1 vacancy term ending 6/30/25. Applicants must be city residents or people with interest in property in the city. Purpose, promote revitalization of environmentally distressed and functionally obsolete areas. I would like to appoint Vidar Liram, 445 Cedar Street.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Mr. Liram for that position.
Support.
Heather, could you please take roll?
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Lundberg.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Notices, communications, and announcements. A report from the PEG Commission and the Parks Commission. Mr. Barry Lund from the PEG Commission will go first.
Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to give you an update on the current status of the PEG Commission. The PEG Commission is, as you hopefully know, what it was used to be commonly referred to as public access television. We operate the current charter cable stations 198 and 199. That's where our content, basically these council meetings, at this point, all commission meetings within the city, I think, are now being videotaped, and that includes the DDA. And then we also kind of have a role outside of the city with the Manistee Township, Filer Township. We record their board meetings. I record the airport meetings since I'm there, so that kind of happens. So, and then under public access television, we have a responsibility to be a forum for the public if anyone wants to submit content for us. So we also serve that role. But recently, or I shouldn't say recently, but over time, the role of kind of that classic public access television piece has declined. The subscribership of charter television is on the downward trend. Currently receive some funding through that. There's a monthly, I think it's 15 cents a month per subscriber fee that gets imposed to the subscribers within the city that flows through to our organization. And right now that's our main funding source. But that has been going on a downward trend for a number of years now. It was probably about 7-8 years ago that we recognized this trend and basically said we need to keep up with the times. So that's when we created our website and really moved all of our content to YouTube, which is kind of now our repository. And that is, I think, where most people are now getting access to the content because it's on demand. You can go there and basically get any meeting at any time that you want to watch. I was just looking at things in preparation for this meeting, and we currently have, under the category of City of Manistee, so that's basically, again, council meetings and boards and commissions, we have content that goes back now 9 years, back to 2013. So pretty much every meeting that's happened, not everyone got recorded, but pretty much everything since that time is still available and archived there. In total, there's nearly 600 different videos of meetings related to the city that are on that site for people to go back and look at any time. On YouTube, since that platform gives us the ability to get some statistics of things, we currently have 305 subscribers. So that means there are 305 people that get notified every time new content gets posted. And it's actually interesting to watch when I post a new meeting. Within a half hour, there'll be 2 or 3 people that have already looked at it or looked at least part of it. In the last month, so the month of October, there were a total of like 3,000 views, but some of those are what I would call spam. For certain reasons, people get fed links to videos like ours, and that generates artificial things. And when you look at the statistics and you see something that's like 5 years old and it got 500 views, you know that that's not something that's really accurate. And usually the average viewing time is like 2 seconds. So they just got tricked to clicking there, and it wasn't what they were interested in. But for October, there was 162 hours of content viewed. And in general, the pattern is that, as it relates to the city content, that city council meetings and DDA meetings are the 2 most watched events. Other boards and commissions, if there's a particularly controversial topic or topic that the public is very interested in, sometimes those will pop up. Sometimes that happens on Planning Commission, or recently Parks Commission has had a couple things where a couple meetings have gotten a lot of more traction than a normal board or commission meeting. So that's what we do and what we've been doing. We are a commission of 5. We still have 1 opening, but we're in a much better position than we were a few months ago, because for about the last 2 years, we've been down to 2 people, and it's really hard to get anything done when it's a commission of just 2 people out of what's supposed to be 5. But we're now up to 4 with recent appointments in the last couple months. Andrea DeYoung, John Hanson, Mike Tillotson, and myself are the 4 commissioners on that PEG commission. And we're really starting a process right now that we have close to full strength, of trying to chart our way forward. One of the things we really want to focus on this year is updating our website. It's probably 7 years old and really hasn't changed much in that time. It needs a facelift. And looking at ways then of trying to see what other types of content, and trying to make some of that content on our website and YouTube easier to find, more interactive, so that it is more easily consumed by the public. So that's what we are, where we are, and hopefully a little bit where we're going. If you got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Is there a way you can track how many people are seeing it on YouTube versus how many people are seeing it through the website itself, through PEG?
Currently not. That is something that we could certainly look at as we're revamping the website. But right now, it just kind of funnels you through ultimately to YouTube, where you're actually really watching it. That's kind of the engine behind it.
So is it a pretty flawless task to put them online, or is there some steps that you have to go through? I'm just curious how the process works.
It depends on what it is. I mean, basically, videos that are captured through this system are pretty flawless, because they're already, you start the recording at the beginning of the meeting and it immediately turns off, so I don't need to really do any editing. Some other things, there may be like 10 minutes where the other meetings that aren't recorded through this system that I get where the camera got turned on before the meeting started, so then I have to go do some editing and cut out, what might be, frivolous conversation that happens either before or after a meeting. So in general, there's not a lot of effort to get things posted. It's sometimes just the biggest part is just waiting for something to upload over a slower internet connection or to download, as the case may be.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you.
Thank you for your work.
At this time, Ms. Liz Lasky will report on the Parks Commission.
Put on my glasses. As John Ruskin, the Victorian philosopher, said in the late 1800s, the measure of any great civilization is its cities, and a measure of a city's greatness is to be found in the quality of its public spaces, its parks, and its squares. I'm Liz Lasky, and I'm the chairman of your Parks Commission. I began analyzing the strengths and the weaknesses of our parks as I prepared for this report. The first strength that came to mind was the quality and diverse background of the people on the commission. 5 of the 7 commissioners are here tonight. I'd like to introduce them: Kelly Greavy, Karen Mao, Tim O'Connor, and Bob Brooks. Wonderful people to work with. We meet monthly and often have an additional work session. We are a hands-on commission. We worked alongside the Great Days of Service participants, painting all the picnic tables at First Street Beach. As a group, we power washed the Lions Pavilion, walkways, all the cement at the cabanas, and edged all the areas by the Lions Pavilion. Manistee Proud was contacted by the MAPS cheerleading coach as she wanted her team to learn to serve and to give back to our community. We assisted the 23 cheerleaders, their coaches, and some of their parents to edge the walkways near the baseball diamonds at First Street Beach, and we weeded the medians leading to the beach. We worked with seed students to paint the tables at the city marina, those little tables by that park, and we worked along with a member of the Harbor Commission to edge by the city marina. We power washed the walkways near the city marina. We went door to door in the Morton Park neighborhood to determine what the needs were and the wants of the neighborhood regarding their park. We held a neighborhood public meeting with the Morton Park neighborhood at City Hall. We are passionate about Manistee, and we realize that this city, like all city, is judged by the number, the quality, and the maintenance of their parks. Why are parks even important? Number one, parks contribute to the overall health and wellness of its community members. Parks provide safe places for connection. Parks encourage physical activity and being outdoors for all ages, but more specifically for children to have a healthy alternative to video games and other sedentary indoor activities. A well-maintained park improves the property values. Parks give families an opportunity for a fun and free activity. Well-maintained parks reduce crime. Parks encourage social skills in children as well as enhance their multisensory experiences. Parks offer bonding sites for celebrations including birthday parties, holiday gatherings, class reunions, family reunions, and even weddings. Clean and well-maintained parks with diverse opportunities bring a sense of pride to a community. Parks are vital to a good community. The accomplishments for the year for the Parks of Manistee were not done by us, but by a collaborative effort by the city, the parks, and the DPW, the Parks Commission, and volunteers. To get projects done and completed, it takes collaboration with many entities, and I believe we are getting some things accomplished. We have a new 18-hole disc golf located near Rocket Park. The Origins Walk planned by Right Side Design, who in collaboration with the Convention and Visitors Bureau was completed on the Riverwalk. They also put out an amazing book about the history of Manistee, which included parks in the book. You, the council, have allocated $35,000 for Morton Park, and we have made the decision, along with the Morton Park neighborhood, for the use of this money. 2 new trees were planted by the DPW at Morton Park. We plan to complete the rest of the work in the spring. The city has applied for a Minger grant for that park and also the baseball diamonds and replacing the basketball hoops at First Street Beach. This was a collaboration with the city, DPW, and the Community Foundation. Lainey Ruzga is experienced in grant writing, and she represented the Parks Commission on this application. The implementation of a rental fee for the Lions Pavilion began this year and year-to-date has generated over $4,000. We would like to see that money put back into the park and specifically the pavilion. We came up with the idea that putting Adirondack chairs at the beach would be a relaxing spot to watch the sunset and would provide a more beachy vibe to the area. We decided to offer these to citizens to purchase, along with benches, as the normal has been, for memorials. So far, 6 of the chairs have been purchased as memorials. The chairs are definitely being used. We held a thank you breakfast at the DPW to show our appreciation for the parks workers and summer help and the DPW for all they did for the parks this past summer. Almost all of our commission was there, but it was not too well attended by the DPW. We also took an educational trip to Glen Arbor Parks. We toured their parks and saw firsthand some exemplary parks and met with someone from their Parks Commission. There are weaknesses, or a better way to put that, there are things that need to be improved upon. The Parks Commission sometimes feels left out of major decisions that affect the parks. We would like to be represented, present at the meetings regarding the parks, and involved from the initial meeting forward. And thank you for tonight. That was for including the Parks Commission on that Riverwalk grant and the architect. We feel we need to raise the bar and set higher standards for our parks. Manistee is blessed with so many beautiful natural amenities. We must make sure that we augment what is naturally here, and we need to maintain it. Karen Pertola on our commission thought of a great motto: come for the lake, but stay for our parks. Let's make that a reality. People don't notice all that goes on behind the scenes in providing sewage and running water to our city. They don't look at the financial statements that our accounting department spends hours preparing. What local taxpayers, citizens, tourists, and potential developers do notice are the parks. They notice if they are clean, well-maintained, offer some recreational activity, and if local people are using them. When our daughter sold her house downstate, the opening statement on the listing was located near Pembroke Park. I have seen listings in Manistee say a home is located near the beach, but have never seen on a real estate listing located near Sands Park or located close to Duffy Park. We need to change that, and we have to make sure that every neighborhood has a park within walking distance. We need to increase the standards for each park. We need to know what the capital improvement plan is for our parks. We need to make sure that we do repairs before things get dilapidated beyond repair, such as the tennis courts at Sands Park. Some of the opportunities for improving the parks include a better working relationship between the DPW parks and the commission, more inclusion of volunteers to assist in improving the parks, more collaboration with the parks, the DPW, on specific goals, on the goals for each park and how we can work together to get these goals accomplished. More opportunities for citizen input and more citizen stewardship regarding their neighborhood park. We need to consider ADA compliance in regard to new equipment. The recent wheelchairs at the beach and the walkways at both beaches are a step in the right direction. There should be some large space downtown to accommodate groups. We shut off the street now to accomplish this. Our common resources are not always pooled together to get the largest impact. We need more communication between you, the council, our commission, the city manager, and the parks, and DPW. We are all on the same team, but we each play a little different position. As you can see, the parks is composed of people who are passionate about improving and maintaining the parks of Manistee. In this time of rapid development and money-driven decision-making, we need to be mindful about preserving and protecting our parks. We must ask the question when making decisions, what do we want Manistee to look like in 10 and 100 years? The example we all hate to talk about is the location of the industrial park. What seemed like a great idea 50 years ago doesn't seem so great today. When we say we have 180 acres of parks, let's make sure we own those 180 acres. Let's make sure that in that number we are not including the streets, man-made lake, and areas that we don't maintain. Once we lose green space, it is gone forever. Wouldn't it have been forward thinking for the city to have acquired the green space across from the marina? The farmer's market could have been held there. The fireworks after the sleigh bell parade could have continued to have been shot off from there. So let's make sure that we all work together to not only improve, but to protect and preserve the parks of this great city. The National Recreation and Parks Association said it best. Parks go beyond the grass, the trees, and recreation equipment they comprise. They become integral parts of people's lives and essential parts of a community. They bind people together over their shared love of the outdoors and their desire to see beauty in their neighborhoods. Thank you for your support. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
We took the parks tour. We talked
Yes.
about using some of the funds that the Lions Pavilion got from rentals and putting in a bathroom. Has anybody looked into how much that cost-wise?
No, and that is we have weddings down there. That's a very used venue we're charging for. We have venues, we have class reunions, but specifically on a wedding, especially, and it's a nominal charge that we charge, but I can't imagine a bride going into a porta-john in a wedding gown. I think we need bathrooms there, or asking her to walk over to the fish cleaning station. So I think, yes, at some point, we definitely need, and that, when we talk about common goals, yes, that would be a great one, Jermaine, thank you.
Thank you.
So I first off want to thank your whole committee. You guys do a phenomenal job. You guys work hard. So if there's anything you need, please feel free to reach out. I'd be more than glad to help with any projects you take on. But I do have a couple of questions. So is there a reason that the money from the Lions Pavilion rental can't go back to the parks if it's not already? I just assumed as a citizen it was.
I don't see why I couldn't. No.
Is there a reason it
I
hasn't
think
been?
that we voted when we put a fee on the Lions Pavilion that it stays to the Lions for, just the Lions Pavilion for maintenance on it.
So it goes back to the pavilion?
Yes.
It does, for sure. Okay, good. Ed, you?
So the money's there, people need to use it, we can tell how much there's been and assign a project to it, but there's been no project assigned to that money.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
I guess as far as the 180 acres, I think you made a really good point on that. Is there a way we can get a breakdown of the 180 acres of City Park, what that is comprised of? And I guess I'd like a list too of what the maintenance is for each park location that you do for the DPW.
That was out there somewhere, wasn't it? Didn't somebody have that? Didn't we have
I
that
haven't
at some
seen it.
point? All the, I thought one of you guys had given us something that had a whole list of stuff at each park. Didn't
We
you?
had the amenities of each park. We had this, what we wanted to see improved upon.
Right.
Yeah, we had a breakdown. We did not have it break down on actual acreage ownership.
I have a question.
Yeah,
And
Linda.
thank you for your presentation, but my question is, when you look at what your needs are as far as the work that you want to do, projects, which include volunteers, what holds you back the most? Is it a lack of funds or is it a lack of people volunteering?
I would say it's a little bit of both. The volunteers have declined, and you don't know why. I mean, they've declined all over in every aspect as far as service clubs and everything. People just are not giving times, and that's why it was so neat that the cheerleading coach was trying to teach the kids to serve. I mean, I commend her on that, but it's a little bit of combination of both. And I think I wish we had a little discretionary fund because it's hard to bother, which we do, and they were excellent this summer. Like, we need a gallon of paint, and they went and got it, and they worked well with that. But if we had we could be approved, but it, like a little ceiling, but even like we're in a project, you hate to call the city hall like, oh my gosh, you don't want to buy 3 gallons of paint if you're only going to need 1. We don't know always, but you hate to call them. If we had a little bit of, yes, you could be reimbursed if you actually spent another $50 on a gallon paint. We don't have to call Jeff to get Mick or someone to go get it and deliver it and interrupt their day to do that. So yeah, it's money and people.
This is just an out of the blue question. Would it be helpful if a group, say Manistee Proud, was their own 501c3?
I don't know. Kelly would I'd have to defer that to her because there is
Because there's a lot of people maybe that would like to give money but just aren't really capable of doing a lot of volunteer work.
Right. I don't know because that is another level of asking a volunteer to keep track of that, file the return, that's a whole nother issue. So, and maybe there's something they could do through the foundation that people could give it if there was a little through that. I don't know. And that's a good point. We should probably check on that. I'd have to defer that to Kelly.
Yeah, I did ask the foundation, but they addressed it through the state.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't really hear what you said, Kelly, sorry.
Sorry. I contacted the community foundation, but they referred me to the city. I just haven't talked to the city about it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, it might be something worth looking into.
It might be, yes. Yeah. Because people I will say that, we were down there and they see you work, and that's the other thing. It's a positive that these people are volunteers and they're invested in their community, and it speaks well for the community. The boaters at the marina specifically were ones that really like that, and they were always saying, here trying to give, Kelly, $20, $50, and I can't take it. I can't. She never took a dime, trust me. But, they were impressed with that, and if you did have an avenue, Linda, that might be a great idea. Jeff, you want to-
So one of the things that the city manager and I had discussed was the possibility of when we have rental fees, like from the Lions Pavilion, or if there's other places, that if that could be rolled into a budget that could supply those volunteer efforts. And just like Liz said, so as they want to continue to work and do things, they've got kind of a built-in mechanism or funding source to be able to do that. And then we're gonna discuss this at a work session, correct?
That's the plan, yeah.
Yeah, so that was one of the discussions we were gonna have at a future work session, but then maybe that could be included where people could donate towards that fund and kind of further their efforts, because when you see what the volunteer groups are doing, it's very visual and people get excited and you know, we wanna keep that momentum going. So we've had those internal conversations and we're gonna have some extended conversations with council on it.
Where does the rental fees go for the marina?
Does that go back into the marina fund? Yes. That goes back into the marina fund for the building.
Yeah, for the building, because I know people use that.
I know we talked a while back and we agreed that you were gonna come to a meeting when we try to do capital improvements or try to do our budget planning. You're gonna bring specific thoughts and budget requests to that meeting. Is that still on your agenda to do that?
Yes, let me know when that is, we would love to be there. Yes.
And-
The more you're including that, this is the passionate group, they're here tonight. I mean, Tim O'Connor drove up from Grand Rapids. I mean, this is a passionate group of volunteers on this commission, so yes, we would love to be included in that. Thank
It
you.
would be helpful to have specific information and what it's gonna cost, and we could talk about budgeting stuff if it's within our budget to do those things.
And the plan was to have it at the December study session where we have the Housing Commission and then a goal setting. So that's already a 2-hour meeting. My thought was maybe to push it to January. We could still do it in December if council wanted, but that's turning into a pretty large study session at this point.
Yeah, it just needs to be, they need at least a month notice to know to get their stuff together,
Right.
what the requests are to bring it to us, so they're not like, oh, there's a meeting tonight at 7, you're gonna show up. We need
Yes.
to give them proper notice. And I'll let you, I guess you'll take your office to take care of notifying them of that, okay?
I will, and I thought after the Housing Commission was added to that one, I thought that was too full at this point, so I was gonna contact you about
Okay.
January if that
Perfect.
works.
January,
Okay.
just give me the date and the time.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, as long as we're talking about parks, here's the thing from the Northern Express. They had an article about old people just don't play tennis ball, they play pickleball. And I'm back to that park at 8th Street, Sands Park, and what we could do. And I know you said at a meeting that's expensive, and we realize that. But, you know, a lot of people are asking me about it, and I'm sure they're asking other people. And, you know, I don't know what it's gonna cost, but I think we should get an estimate. I think you had somebody come to the meeting or say that it was pretty expensive.
Yeah, the last time those tennis courts were rehabbed, Wade Trim was your engineer, so at least 15 years ago. And I remember when the engineers from Wade Trim did the rehab to that, they said, this surface is gonna last you about 5 to 10 years. It won't last anymore, and I think that was about $40,000. So probably for the past 15 years, even before I worked for the city, we put together estimates. Spicer's updated those twice at least. But really the courts require reconstruction at this point. 2 of the courts, Bill was working to get another contractor up here to give us an opinion to see if maybe there were some new techniques that could prolong the life of at least 2 of them. But we've been working with the schools, the tennis coaches. There's a group of citizens that used to play at that park twice a week. They have reached out to the professional tennis league, whatever that is, but they were looking at all kinds of different grants. And so, do you remember what the last number was? I think it was about 200,000, wasn't it?
I feel like it was 40,000 court, full replacement, that was fencing, everything.
Yeah, so I mean, we're in the $200,000 ballpark to replace those 4 courts. If you remember, we actually applied for a Minger grant to resurface those, and the way that I did the application was to resurface them as tennis, but also stripe them and set it up so that it could be used for pickleball. The foundation at that time had another application from Manistee Township for pickleball, so they said, well, we're getting all these requests. They formed their own little committee and studied it. They said, don't ever mix pickleball and tennis. They're two separate things. They look similar, but the nets are different heights, the stripes are different. They should be standalone. And they decided to fund tennis, or the pickleball in Manistee Township, which are, if anybody's driven by there, they're incredibly used. And then they encouraged us to reapply for rehabilitating the 4 courts at First Street, which we were successful in doing.
And a lot of people are saying to me, well, you know, we know, but there's so many people trying to do that.
Yeah.
Get into that, so.
And I just read in the News Advocate that I think Filer Township's planning to make an application to convert their tennis into pickleball. So I think there's a need for both in the community, and we need to find a funding source for them.
And we met with Laney from the Parks Commission with the foundation, and they did seem to think that pickleball might be a good fit over there, so that could be an application. Former community I worked for, they did renovate their courts, and that's why I brought a company over that did that, and they said because they're concrete, it's more expensive, you do have to redo it. Asphalt, you can just kind of redo, and it's kind of ongoing maintenance, but it isn't this big expense. But because they're concrete, that's why we have such a large expense.
So if we can't rehab those, I guess I'm just wondering, are we thinking of a plan to potentially take them out and just make that green space or something? Because I'll be honest, it's an eyesore.
Yeah.
And it's pretty pathetic when you are out walking or you're driving around and people are playing tennis on that. And that's what we have to offer them
I know.
in that neighborhood.
And they stop to look.
And they get vandalized. I
Yep.
mean, the spray paint's still there with all the vulgar profanity.
And when we were constructing the shed that the Grabowskis donated, it was amazing to me how many kids were coming from the school to the teen center and how many left the teen center to go play on those courts. And so to answer your question, that park has a governing board that is made up of the city of Manistee and the Manistee Area Public Schools. There's 2 members that sit on those boards.
Who owns that park?
Help me, George.
The city and the school.
Jointly?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's been a conversation, Mr. Pratt, that's been a conversation with that board, and looked at, or talked about, and I actually got an estimate from a contractor on what it would take to remove that. So that entered into the conversation. And
Is that cheaper?
to remove them, I don't remember what the number was. I think it was about,
Is it 20 or 40? I have to look.
I was thinking it was about 20,000 for removal and disposal.
So it's considerably cheaper just to remove.
Then to,
You were telling me it would be 200,000 to replace, so if it's 20 to remove them, that's a significant savings.
yes.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if we need to think about if we can't get a grant or secure funding to make some changes, if it would be better off to remove them for the time being and then replace them down the road if finances change, or if we can get the school to come into an agreement. I just feel bad that that's what we have. It's an eyesore, and we can't ask people to upkeep their properties if we're not upkeeping our own. And that's just where I'm at on it.
But I keep bringing that up because I don't want to see it taken out of there.
Well, I don't either, but I guess if I owned a house across the street, I might rather that be vacant green grass than to have to look at that. I prefer that they be courts of some sort. And I think there's a lot of grant money out there right now. So I'm wondering if we're taking advantage of all the grants that are out there. Because I think that it'd be pretty easy to secure funding right now.
A town needs 8 tennis courts. We cannot hold a regional, I don't even know if you can hold district. You have to have the high school district meet 8 courts. And so, you know, that's sad that we're not supplying that. We're a good school, we're a big school. We need to provide that for our kids, to have a home district, home regional tennis match.
Absolutely.
And you would have a better tennis team too, if we provided them, you know, with adequate courts to practice on. Any comments from the commission?
Yeah, we would mention the Martha.
Oh, at the bottom. And Karen had contacted Mark Fetter, And Mark Fetter from the museum is going to give a talk in this room on January 19th at 6 o'clock on the history of the parks, which will be very interesting. He's very good, and it's he's done the presentation before, but it's just going to be on the history of the parks, which, you know, why, you know, like Sands Park, when they made that in the original deed, it was supposed to always be called Louis B. Sands Park, and we've shortened it. But there's a lot of history in these parks. There was a lot of benefactors that really made contributions that were foresighted enough down the road. When I asked that question, they knew what they wanted Manistee to look like in 100 years, and they gave us those parks. That Sands Park, the very first deed transfer was in 1914, and we're still using it. You know, and they kept a little caveat in it until 1954 that if it was to be reverted to a use other than a park, it went back to Louis B. Sands himself, and if he and his wife had passed, to their heirs. But they did take that out in 1954, which allowed now, because they also gave the football field, the old Chippewa Gridiron Field, to the school. And had they not removed that caveat, they could not turn that into asphalt and a turnaround for their buses. But their goal was to preserve the green space and create it for Manistee for the longevity of the town. So I thought, keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks.
Next is concerns and comments. Citizens comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on municipal services, activities, or areas of city involvement. Limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to council will not be publicly read.
My name is Sarah Harless. I live on 5th Street. And I just want to say I've lived in the city of Manistee my whole life other than when I was at Wea College. 21 years my adult life, so 21 years on 5th Street. And it pains me to have to come to my first ever city council meeting in my 46 years. Because I love my city, and we chose to come back here. My husband and I chose to come back here and raise our children in our city. But I'm here with one major complaint and then a few others. For at least 3 years now, the leaves have not been picked up out of the road. And I know that sounds really petty when I stand here in front of you. For the past 2 years, I have emailed Mick Szymanski, who was my councilman, who is no longer. I have emailed him regarding the situation, so I'm not one of those people who are going to sit on Facebook or anywhere else and complain about it, although I did recently, and I thought if I'm going to do that, then I need to address you. That's why I'm here today. So I emailed Mick the past 2 years regarding it. Here we are in year 3 at least that I can remember. And, you know, we are asked to alternate park starting on October 15th so that the leaves can be picked up, and if snow falls early, plowing can be done. And the leaves sit and sit and sit. And every day that I get home from work, I think, oh, they're going to be gone this day, and they're not. And it's not just on 5th Street, because I serve the public as well. I know what it's like to have people complain. I drove around my city. I thought, well, maybe it's just over in my area. It's not. Not only do I see piles of leaves on the street, I see bags of leaves where people have actually bagged their leaves.
I was just agreeing with you.
Oh,
I was pulling them back up
sorry.
on the sidewalk.
So it's, you know, so now I'm at year 3. And I guess, you know, again, being a lifelong resident, I can remember the days of all the things that our city kind of did for its citizens. And I really feel like this is like the one last thing that we have left. Now, if we rake them down to the road in the spring, you can't. They have to be bagged. And if you do rake them down to the road, you get a nasty letter in your mailbox telling you that they have to be bagged, and if they're not bagged by a certain date, the city will send someone to my house to bag them for me that I have to pay for. Yet, they are not picked up in the fall when they're supposed to be picked up, and they're just plowed back up onto my lawn and my neighbor's lawn and everyone else's lawn. You know, when I was a kid, we used to have the classic spring junk pickup. And as a kid, it was so fun because you walked around and picked up everybody else's junk. We got rid of that because that was too costly, I guess. I'm not really sure. We went to every other year. Now we don't have every other year even. Now you can put out one big item the first of every month. What has that caused? Blight. Now we have blight all over our city. Why? Because people don't have the means to haul all of their junk to the dump. Regardless if that's their responsibility or not, because that's a whole nother debate. Many people don't have the means to be able to do that. So we've lost that service. Again, I feel like the last thing we have left is this leaf pickup in the fall, and it's just not happening. And then you want alternative parking, but there's nowhere to park because there's leaves everywhere. I don't know how this problem can be solved. I realize it's a manpower issue, and there's other things that need to happen. But when I read in the newspaper that the decorations are being put up downtown for Christmas, I can't help but be frustrated, thinking, but you haven't even picked up the leaves yet. And you're already
cut you off, but you have 30 seconds.
Preparing for Christmas. That's fine. I also just want to thank the Parks Department and the Manistee Proud because I don't think it's their responsibility to maintain the Riverwalk. That's DPW's department. I've had to call several times to ask for them to trim back bushes and everything else so that I can just walk on the Riverwalk. Clean up the trash at the Riverwalk. Just those small things. Give back to your community, as Ms. Lasky has already said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted it to be on the record that Manistee Proud did accept 2 donations. One was from Mary Payne's yoga class for $84, which we used for the art park for paint. And the other was from Kathy Swiderski for $20. I chased her down the Riverwalk to give it back to her and she wouldn't take it. So it was all towards paint and other supplies. I just wanted that on the record.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ruth Pratt. I live at 463 4th Street, and I've started a little conversation with Mr. Gamble because when we got the snow, yes, the leaves were not picked up once again this year. However, my big concern was that when we take our grandson down to the bus stop to go to Onekama School, there's always somebody cleaning the sidewalks downtown. And I think, wow, we're on a bus route to get to Jefferson School. Our street hasn't even been plowed yet. Why is downtown being plowed? I mean, on the sidewalks. And I owned a business down there for 10 years. I cleaned, if you had a business, you cleaned your sidewalk. You salted your sidewalk. That was your responsibility. The answer I got back was, about the leaves, was that he's worked in other cities where they don't even pick up leaves. Well, that's fine. You know, Filer City has a place for everybody to take them to. You know, if the leaf pickup is a big deal, then tell us where to take our leaves. Because I get tired of raking them over and over and over again because before they get picked up, they're blown all over. When we had the snow, a plow did not go down 4th Street until 11:30. Now that is a bus route. And when I got a response from him, because when he said that the DDA pays extra to get that service, I asked him how much? $65,000. Do you know where the DDA gets their money? From us, taxpayers. So is that, if you pay the most taxes, then you're gonna get more service? To me, the bus routes and 31 and Maple Street should be first. The businesses other than Goodies and that little sandwich shop don't open. They open early, but the other ones don't open until 10 or 11 o'clock. I would think those plows should be able to go around and hit the bus routes and maybe even do the sidewalks. On our block, my husband does half the block so the kids who are walking to school aren't in the road. Because if the sidewalks aren't plowed, then the kids go in the road. And it's not safe when there's that, it's a mess up there by Jefferson. I mean, it's just a mess. People are in a hurry, they want to get to work, they want to drop their kid off. So I have a problem with downtown paying $65,000 extra to be serviced first. I have a big problem with that, because that's us taxpayers' money. So I think that needs to be relooked at, but we've been here for 30-some years, and I can remember hearing the snowplow go by at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. They don't come out until 7 o'clock now. That's just ridiculous. So I suggested, what about having 2 shifts? I mean, if I'm a snowplow driver, I would think that I would realize you don't get paid extra if you happen to be on the night shift, or you don't get paid extra if you work on a Saturday, because I'm a snowplow driver. Snow comes at all kinds of crazy times. But they were out, and it was on a weekend, so I'm sure they got, I thought on a weekend they're out there early, and on a weekday they're not out there. Now, I'm not going to blame Mr. McCullough. I know he was on vacation deer hunting, but those other people should know what they're supposed to do. And this should just be automatic. When I worked for a dentist, when I worked for a dentist, you had a job description. I'd like to see what some of these DPW job descriptions are, and why it is always that, oh, I don't know. It's just pass the buck, pass the buck, pass the buck. And I, as a taxpayer, am getting tired of it.
Thank you.
My name's Alyssa Lasky. I'm at 505 4th Street. I wasn't planning on it because I don't even know who Sarah is, but I've also been here my whole life minus college, and I'm going to echo every single thing she said. I was one of the lucky few who got my leaves picked up. I had them out. I know, right? I had them out in front of my street, or in front of my house. I think for the better part of 4 or 5 weeks, kept on piling them up. Occasionally would wet them so that they didn't all blow back into my yard. But let's be better. And I think the idea of, well, some of us have been places where they don't even do this. I think that's a shameful attitude to stoop down to, and I really hope that we don't go there. Let's be better, Manistee. We have been better. We must be better. The one thing that I was planning on after none of what I just said, the one thing I did want to note, and I wouldn't have fathomed that Mr. Barry Peterson wasn't reappointed to the Airport Authority, but alas, you may have heard my gasp when, I'm sure Mr. Becker is lovely, when there was no discussion, Mr. Becker was appointed or nominated from this group. Mr. Peterson is an integral part of the Airport Authority, on which I also serve. He's been there for 6 years. He is our chairperson, and I don't know, maybe there was some offline discussion, but I'm devastated that he wasn't reappointed, and you all have made, in all likelihood, not very positive impact to the Airport Authority. And the next time one of these comes up, I would really encourage you to maybe solicit some input, or really make sure that you understand the impact of your vote, because your vote's powerful. And I'm incredibly disappointed, and I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'll move on to officials and staff. Mr. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Rick Tetzworth. I live in Manistee. I have a very small issue compared to all these that I've heard. I guess my issue is the watchtower downtown that has not worked for not 1 year, not 5 years, but we're into a decade now or more. Just in a few short days, or a week or 10 days, we're going to have 10,000 people down there, or 20, or $30,000. We have that many, 30,000 people. We have that many for 4th of July. Let's get the clock fixed. I know there's been discussion about it. I know it's been brought up. Fix the clock. It's a Victorian style clock. You know, it's the company, I've checked on it. They're still open for business. Have them come and look at it.
Jeff, we discussed all this and had it brought up. Aren't they working on that? I thought they were working on the clock.
We have contracted with the clock manufacturer to do the repairs, and Bill brought it up to me earlier. I guess Councilwoman Beaton had some questions
Got a
on
note on
that.
it,
So
process.
we'll check with the company to see, but we're expecting them to come and they're gonna do a full rehab of that clock.
Do we have a scheduled date for that yet?
They have not given us a date, but that's why we're gonna call and follow up with that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I guess one other comment I have is, the Manistee Proud Committee is wonderful. I walk the Riverwalk in parks. They work hard as heck. I mean, you know, if they're saying something to you, they're legit. They're the real thing. So, good luck. Thank you so.
Thank you.
One last clarification came up with from the commission, and it goes back to that money generated from the Lions Pavilion. And has that been earmarked to stay into the pavilion or not? I think that needed to be clarified, and we just want to know for sure if that's, is it a separate fund, or is it a separate fund that has to be go?
So we're tracking, we know the amount that came in. I think the argument could be made to spend that, whether it be for volunteer supplies or going back to the Lions Pavilion, but I do believe that the council did want that to go back to the Lions Pavilion. But I think at the next study session, we can kind of, at the January one, we can talk about that and see how we want to do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll move on to officials and staff. Mr. Gamble.
Thank you, Mayor. And my comments about the bags, it was just another idea, but I talked with DPW about making sure we pick up the leaves earlier next year, you know, starting around.
This is year 3.
Yeah.
That they've been snowed on.
Yeah, and we,
We should be progressive.
Mrs. Pratt, it's not your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
so I appreciate that. And I did your comments about the school routes and things. I had some discussions with Mr. McCula and Brandon over at DPW, so we're going to be looking at those things. So I appreciate your comments. And I just wanted to thank the Parks Commission for all their work, and it was great work. And I thought the collaboration with that Minger grant to kind of get the most out of the $100,000 application was great teamwork, and I appreciate that. So thank you. And happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you. I'm not going to call on all the officials and staff individually. If anybody has anything, if you please step forward.
I wanted to let council know that today we filed for an extension for the city's audit. We've never had to do that in my 20 years being with the city, but we don't have the Housing Commission audit, and we have to include some of their financial statements in our audit in order for it to be considered complete. If we don't have that in, then we'll get an adverse opinion. There's still a chance we could get it, but given that it's this late in the season and they're due December 31st, I thought it prudent to file for an extension. So I just wanted council to be aware.
Did they give you a date on when they're supposed to have it?
I don't have a date.
Is there a reason we don't have that yet?
It's been an ongoing issue for years. Typically, their audit's late. We get it just at the very end. This year, what Clinton has said is that because of the RAD conversion that happened late last year, they've had trouble getting the books and the journal entries from their consultants to be able to split that apart. So I've had ongoing conversations with them, but I don't want to take the chance that our audit is considered late, so that's why we filed for the extension.
Thank you.
I'll speak briefly to the leaves. We publicized in mid-October that the city would begin leaf collection on Monday, November 7th. Couple things go into play with that. Number one, we get our 6 bridge tenders back into the DPW on November 1st. So that would have been the prior Tuesday. If I had a crystal ball and could do it over, I would have started it back then, but we rolled it to the next Monday. We have been picking up leaves ever since November 7th, and the only time that we halted was last Thursday afternoon and last Friday to do snow. Otherwise, the crew has been out there and working the entire time. By the first couple hours tomorrow morning, they will have the first complete circuit of the city done. And then we've got some specific requests and that we're going to go back to. But my suspicion is that with the weather warming up, snow's gonna melt, there's gonna be a lot more people cleaning up their yards if the weather stays nice. So this program is always about a 4 to 5 week process. We're in the second week, and so we'll continue doing that for the next couple weeks and at least in the first week of December.
Jeff, do we have a night shift on?
We don't usually start the night shift until end of January, beginning of February, when the snow events are more continuous. And at that time, we split into actually 3 shifts. We've got a small crew that works 3:30 or 3 to 11, and then we've got a crew that works 11 to 7. So we've got coverage really from 11 p.m. Sunday evening to Friday at 11 p.m. Usually before that, there's a lot of other work that we try to accomplish. We've got all of our forestry work and setting up the ice skating rink, things like that. So becomes inefficient to split them prior to that.
I just wanted to know, okay.
I got a question. How many people do you have picking up the leaves? Like, is it everybody?
There's a crew of 4. So we have the one loader with the tin claw, and then there's 3 truck drivers that do that. And then as necessary, we have another person that will push the leaves up to consolidate them into bigger piles. We started doing that on November 1st. We didn't want to make the big piles prior to trick-or-treating, where the piles could actually become visual hazards. So we started the day after, and then honestly, there's just a lot that came down all at once.
How many people are in total, like in the DPW, do you have that you can pull? Because I'm just wondering if you're waiting for those 6. I mean,
There are
you have
10 people in the street department.
Okay.
So when we get the 6 from the bridges, that's when we've got the manpower to be able to do that crew.
Of 4.
Of 4, right.
Okay, I'm confused. If there's 10 people and 6 are on the bridge, what are the other 4 doing?
They're doing the normal street stuff, brush
Can't
pickup.
they start that earlier?
Well, we'll publish it and start it earlier.
Okay. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
So could you just speak a little bit about, these couple of people saying that it's been this way for 3 years? I mean, maybe this was a, different year than the others, but if they're saying it's been this way for 3 years, has this been your process all 3 years? Because it doesn't seem like it's working.
It's been about the same time frame.
Okay.
And we've been doing it for an extended period of time. I'm not sure about 3 years ago, I don't recall that. Last year, we got snow early, just like we did this year. And I think last year it stayed. And so we did offer and did a bulk pickup in the spring of this year to accommodate for that. This year, most of them got out into the street the week before we started, and then we started picking them up and have been going at it ever since.
Is it something that you will consider maybe adjusting?
Yeah, I mean, we'll post it to start a little bit earlier. It's hard to predict when they're gonna come down, and when they come down, then you need some nice weather and people get them out in the streets. But we'll start that process earlier, and if they're not in the streets, then we don't have to do that, obviously, but we'll be prepared earlier next year.
Jeff, is the piece of equipment you use to push the leaves, that the same one you plow the sidewalks with?
Yes.
So you can't do both with that equipment then, right? Is that why the sidewalk didn't get you?
Well, if you remember, almost a year ago tonight, you approved a second piece of that machinery because the machinery that we had prior to that broke down. That was just delivered about 3 weeks ago.
Is your current one broken now? I noticed when he was pushing leaves in my house, there was oil everywhere, and the guy just kept using it, and it was leaking oil by the gallons, and I don't know why he kept using it when he probably should have parked it, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but it was broke for probably almost 5 weeks until we could get parts. They sent it back out, I know at least for 1 day, and it had issues again, brought it back in, and I think they just got it repaired yesterday.
I would expect an operator to recognize when it's leaking oil like that. I mean, it had to leave 5 gallons of oil on Spruce Street. And the driver just kept driving it. I didn't know why he wouldn't just take it out of service. I would expect that they would recognize that.
I'll look into that.
You can look at the trails up and down Oxford Court, the whole thing is covered with oil, but. And again, I'm frustrated with that. I mentioned it back in October that we're gonna get caught again this year when we weren't picking them up until the 7th, but lesson learned, I hope, somewhere along the line.
The other thing I wanted to update you on is Quincy Street, especially Councilman Beaton. In speaking with the contractor yesterday, they're finishing up the water service replacements in the water main. They have gone a portion with sanitary, with water. They're gonna stop. Next week, they're gonna replace and put the gravel base back in, and then we'll cease construction for the rest of the year. So the street will either have gravel on the very west end or the rest of the existing pavement. Contractor will return in the spring. So if you have any questions from those
I'll be
residents.
sure to send them your way.
So
Yeah, they call pretty regularly.
I have a couple questions. Right now, when you go down Washington Street, you have the detour sign off to the side and all of that. Is there a plan to pick that up since that's not being used currently?
Is that still from?
Still there tonight when I drove by.
From Washington or Memorial?
It's from Washington where you had that pothole where Linda had asked when she was mayor to put a sign up because actually when you turned on that street, there was no indicator.
Yeah, we can have the contractor clean that up.
So can that
That's
get,
the one active one.
Can that get done before
Yeah,
sleigh
tomorrow.
bell? Okay. So I'd like to go back to the Leafs just for a minute, and I know you've probably heard a lot, but you mentioned the thing about Halloween. The Leafs were an issue at Halloween. Councilmember Bachman brought it up. There were huge piles. It had been brought up at several city council meetings that it was a hazard to get down the road because of the huge piles of leaves. So I don't know what we need to do to revamp that, but what we're currently doing isn't working. You might need to look at different shifts. We might need to look at doing it several times. There's a whole bunch of bags out. Right now, if you go across from the Ramsdale where the Kratz live, the historical home has a whole bunch of leaves out. So we're gonna have things going on at the Ramsdale for sleigh bell and all those bags are sitting there. That's unacceptable.
We're still picking them up.
Well, my leaves have yet to be picked up. They have not been picked up once. I have had to rake them several times. I even bagged them.
The crew was there today because I drove down the street and noticed them
Well,
there.
I have pictures. So my question on this is, because the city plow went through and plowed streets when the leaves were on the streets currently, you have pushed huge piles of leaves and snow that might have some ice combined because of the conditions, right onto the corner where people would cross from one sidewalk to the next sidewalk. So with thinking ahead, because sleigh bell is coming up, if somebody is going to cross the street and they trip and fall because those have not been cleared, who's responsible if they fall and get injured in the street?
That's a legal question. I don't know.
Well, my question is, are we gonna do something to address that? Because I feel like we should go down the sidewalks since we created that mess. I'll be honest, I'm not thrilled about having to clean up a mess that I didn't create. And I'm hearing it from a lot of people. And I specifically asked city workers when my leaves were gonna get picked up, and they told me they had no idea. So I'm asking about the communication from the top down, because at last city council meeting, I asked at the end when leaves were gonna get picked up. Bill Gamble mentioned to us they'd be picked up by the end of the week. That did not happen. I brought up tickets, and I specifically asked what we were going to do if somebody got a ticket, and I was told that they could come in. We were not going to enforce that because we had not done our part for leaves. Because people could not do alternate parking.
I'm not privy to that conversation, but.
Well, you weren't here.
Right.
But it is recorded, and I would have thought you would have been caught up. So did you get a memo or anything about leaves after last council meeting?
We've had conversations when I returned from vacation, yes.
In the future, maybe we need to send it in writing.
Don't have anything really uplifting, but I just want to make a couple comments. This weekend was a very busy weekend for the police department. Saturday, we initiated a death investigation, which we quickly ruled as a homicide. While that investigation is still ongoing, I just want to note the seamless cooperation with the different law enforcement agencies, our fire department, and during that investigation. The very next day, we received a tip on one of our major investigations, breaking and entering into our storage units. Because we're on the tail end of the second day of a homicide investigation, I contacted the Michigan State Police the next morning, huddled up, brought all of our resources together, They took the lead, spearheaded coordinating different counties which were victimized by these assailants, spearheaded the search warrant efforts, execution of search warrants, and those led to an arrest in different counties, and we'll be requesting charges as well for our local break-ins. So just a quick update for what I can disclose. Positive, not upbeat unfortunately, but that's kind of where we're at, and that's what happened this weekend.
Well, you guys did a great job based on, you made the news, it's great to have a arrest on a homicide rather than a homicide investigation.
Yeah. Little unique for me. I've been a lead investigator for homicides. Our detective was out of town, never got to wear both hats at the same time, so it was a great opportunity for me.
Read the news. There's so many investigations around the country that are just unsolved. It's nice to have the skill set and teamwork to put those together. So thank you for that hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bottom?
You know, I had about 3 things, but most of them have been covered. Anyway, zoning. Councilman Lumber brought up the issue with the painted signs on the windows downtown last week. This week, there's a pretty solid rant against the city from AJ's Pizza about harassment because they painted their windows and they painted on the outside instead of the inside. If it's inside, it's legal. If it's outside, it's illegal, which makes little sense to me, and it made little sense to them. Plus, there's some other issues. But I don't want to be, and I've said this since we started, we need to rule with common sense. And I don't want to be a city council or city administration that makes it harder for a business to make a buck. I don't know how. I had the impression from zoning before that that kind of stuff was only initiated based on a complaint. It appears maybe that might not be the case, and they actually said that 2 city council members went in the parking lot looking at their business and fled when they were spotted. I find that hard to believe, but
So,
anyway.
and I'll say, council member, that is, we had some complaints about something at the Gold and Silver Exchange with postings on and then that's turned into then pointing out every other non-compliant sign and windows. So they have been complaint driven. Unfortunately, we're at the point now where we're just trying to get compliance with the whole block. But yeah, it's definitely escalated throughout the whole. We're just trying to make sure everyone's aware of the ordinance and then complying with the ordinance. So at this point.
How long has that ordinance been around?
The HDC, it's been, I can look into that, but it's the window, yeah. So all, I guess, window signage needs to be approved by the HDC. So I don't know exactly when that happened, but that's kind of.
The city schools go downtown and paint all those windows for Spirit Week. They're all in violation of the zoning. Anyway, I find those to be kind of.
Not very.
Understood. But then I get.
I really don't want to be a city that makes it difficult for someone to run a business and make money. Thank you.
Did you have one more?
I pretty much got my.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to personally say I feel the family's pain for Cynthia Parrington over at Century Terrace. I was devastated by what happened this weekend. Sad for our city, sad for their family. Cynthia was working hard to try to get the residents together with other people, obviously helping her efforts to bring problems to light at Century Terrace. I think this has been a really heavy blow to the community. It's been shocking. My heart breaks for the family. This is the second time since I've lived here that there's been something like this at Century Terrace. So I just really pray that we never see this again. So I just want to tell everybody, let's keep Cynthia's family in our prayers. Thank you.
I wanted to thank the Parks Commission for a wonderful presentation and the hard work that you've been doing in our city. It makes me proud to be part of this. So thank you very much, and any way we can support you, I am behind that. I also wanted to, I didn't say it last week and I wish I would have, but I also wanted to thank all the candidates that ran for city council positions. I'm hearing about places around Michigan that can't even get someone to run to fill a spot, much less, having multiple people. And that makes me feel like we've got a lot of people in this city that really want to do the right thing for the community. And I just, I wanted to thank all the candidates that made it and didn't make it, and I hope that they will find a place to give back to our community in some way. That's all I have.
Mr. Bobrowski?
I think we addressed most of my problems, but Jeff, are we gonna do something to fix up the fence at Mac Park? That's been over a year now we've talked to, where that tree fell on it.
Yeah, I think we discussed this prior, but we were able to get a quote from a fence company to do an insurance claim, and we have not been able to get that contractor to commit to coming back, and we have not been able to find another contractor to do that work, so we're still trying.
But are they just too busy, or don't they have enough people like everybody, or what?
Yeah. Yeah, we've been successful in using one contractor, actually out of Cadillac, the last probably 3 years. That's who gave us the quote. The local contractor that we had used quite a bit before that and haven't even been able to get quotes from them, they came and did the repair work down at First Street softball field on after hours, and then our conversations with them are that they would be excited to come back and continue doing work for us, but they've not been responsive.
Okay, I was just wondering, it's been a long time.
It's still on the list, yes.
Okay. So, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
I have a couple of things. My city email is not working.
Okay.
The city website, you've updated my name, but then it says contact Councilmember Szymanski, so that's not updated as well. In regards to that. I also have a question on one of the budget items that I was hoping I could get clarification on. Under the general fund on page 3 of the 9, it says FOIA training. Can you explain that to me?
So, yeah, myself, the Kelly McCall, and also I believe the police secretary attended FOIA training.
So and I think Sergeant Goodspeed too. So
Cedric Goodspeed as well, yes.
were they certified prior to that?
They've attended FOIA training before, many of those people.
So were they certified?
I don't know if there's a certification process, do you know, Chief? If
No, it's not a certification process. We like to send staff at least every 2 years to stay in touch with our updates. We can't do every year. Obviously, COVID impacted whether they were available.
Okay.
We like to send our employees to Laura Hinckley, who is the Michigan State Police person for FOIA. So our goal is every other year, if possible. So Mary had not attended previously because she was an employee. Kirsten Goodspeed did.
Okay.
But there's no certification for it. It's a one-day class.
But they've been trained? None?
Yes.
Okay. So I bring that up because, I'll be honest, I've heard a lot of concerns about FOIA complaints from individuals, including a lot of the legal professionals within our community, that it's extremely difficult to get FOIA processes done through the city of Manistee. And I'll be honest, with my personal experience, it has been the same. So I brought that up because I had specifically asked that question of Mr. Gamble previously, and I was told that they were. So I'm glad to hear that they were. But I do have concerns about the FOIA process. Ultimately, you are the FOIA person that the buck stops with, and you should be overseeing that. So throughout my processes, when I've done FOIA requests, we are not meeting the timelines. There's not letters that are going out saying that we need extensions. I have paid for FOIA requests that the print is like this. Somebody should notice that. I don't allow that to go out through a school system. I handle FOIA requests. This is unacceptable. I can't even read it. It's not the way it was sent. I have a city professional who's hired through the city that says, hey, I put everything in your box for Seth Pratt. If you can, supplement your information and forward the body camera. Everything else should be done. Let me know in the morning, because I'm sure Pratt is going to FOIA request it. That is unprofessional. I don't mean it wrong. If it is an email to a documentation, we should always be operating under the guidance that anything we do can be FOIA requested. That should not have to be put in an email. That leads people to question if you're wording something differently. I'm not thrilled. I have gotten documentation that includes people's driver's license numbers and date of birth. That should not be released. So I'm not thrilled on that. I would like to maybe add to a work session where you can walk us through the FOIA process so we can get a better understanding of that. Potentially regarding my personal matter, I think you and I might need to set up a meeting, so if you can look at your schedule and let me know, I would appreciate that. I'm really disappointed that so many people in the public have to come and complain about some of the things that got mentioned at city council meetings, but I'm appreciative of that, and I want you guys to know that you're heard, and that I think we're being responsive and trying to do that. But I would like to know from the city manager where we stand in regards to tickets that were issued. Because my city email was not working, I had somebody that lives in my district reach out to me. It appears that many people on 7th Street received parking tickets when the Leafs were still on the street, so they did not feel that they could comply with the alternate parking. They have called the city, and they have yet to receive a response. I asked at the last council meeting, and I thought we were leaving under the impression that tickets weren't going to be issued during that time, so I don't know if that is something that we're all in agreement on, or if I need to make a motion that we take action on that, because again, I don't think we can hold residents responsible if we drop the ball.
And that particular, I think for a month, they're doing warnings. I think I was under the impression it was 4 to 6 weeks. I think when the snow falls, I found the police chief said they do issue.
Yeah, we give them 4 to 6 weeks after advance notice. We don't write citations unless there's significant snowfall. We know the plows are going to be out. That way we can get compliance so that we can actually remove the leaves and snow. We think that giving them 6 weeks of notice, putting notices on cars, publicizing on social media, just to help get compliance so we can get the roads clear so the leaves can be removed. I'm not aware of any don't write ticket situation. My officer started writing, my understanding was Tuesday or Wednesday night when we had 6 to 8 inches of snowfall. Whether or not at 4 o'clock in the morning they can see the leaves underneath the snow, I'm assuming that they knew that the plows would be out and that non-compliant residents would be ticketed. So we've given them 6 weeks of notice.
It was brought up at last council. And I understand, and I'm not blaming you or your department. You guys are doing your job, so please don't take it that way. But again, I personally don't think we can ask people to move their car if they can't because of the conditions of the road. That is a city issue that we are responsible for. So are we going to avoid tickets or not?
Josh, isn't parking for leaf removal only during the day, Monday through Friday? It's not a 3 in the morning thing. It's only alternate parking Monday through Friday from what, 7 to 4?
It's during the work hours is what the ordinance.
Yeah, during DPR work hours.
Yeah.
So when I talk about 3 in the morning, that's when our officers get out to write citations when everyone's in bed. Is that what you're asking, or?
But an officer wouldn't write a ticket for alternate parking during leaf season at 2 in the morning, because it's not illegal.
They do it for the snow removal. It's for snow removal. We don't write tickets until the snowfall comes.
I know, but leaf, I'm sorry, I don't. But
We don't write tickets when it's just leaves of the
alternate
road.
Parking for snow removal doesn't start till November 15th.
No, it's October 15th.
The alternate parking begins October 15th, November 15th. We don't enforce it because of the common sense standard that it's, our opinion is for snow removal so that people
I
can.
think it's October 15th and November 15th for leaf removal. It's only business hours Monday through Friday, and it's snow season for alternate parking starts November 15th. There is no snow removal alternate parking until November 15th.
That's how the ordinance reads.
That's how the ordinance reads. Yeah, there's a very distinctive difference between October 15th and November 15th just for leaf removal, Monday through Friday during business hours. And it kicks in November 15th for snow removal. So if a guy writes a ticket for snow removal or leaf removal on October 30th, or even November 7th, it's not a good ticket.
Yeah, we didn't write those, is what I'm saying. I can go back and verify when we wrote the citations, so we can make sure that we're good that way. My understanding is last week, either it would be early Wednesday morning or early Thursday morning, we begun writing citations.
So based on the image they sent me, it looks like it was 11:14.
Okay.
I can't make out the officer's signature.
I'll take a look at that.
Badge
coordinate
number
with
610.
manager.
A staff educational thing perhaps.
Yeah.
I know you got a lot of new people, but that law is pretty specific. Thank you.
I guess the only other thing I have is maybe if individuals that are in charge of certain departments are unable to attend, that we follow up in an email. That works best for me, just speaking with my professional world, because sometimes you forget if you've had a conversation, but then we can always refer back to that. I believe one of the audience members mentioned it. I also had that, last meeting, being a new council member, just having some background information about like what is the role of the mayor and the mayor pro tem might be helpful before we go to a vote. And I think that was kind of mentioned too, like with some of those committees, knowing the airport authority and things like that. So I think we have to do better than what we're currently doing. So I'll leave it at that.
I have nothing. I hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving, and I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second.